Hey guys, Katie here and welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is going to be suicide awareness, which is something that was requested by Doug because he'd like to learn more about suicide and how to help people and stuff like that, and just learn more about it, which I think is a great thing, and I think more people should know about suicide. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the US for all ages. And every day, approximately 105 Americans die by suicide, and every 13 minutes, there is one death by suicide. And suicide takes the lives of over 38,000 Americans every year. And an estimated 250,000 people each year become suicide attempt survivors, and 80 to 90% of people that seek treatment for depression are treated successfully using therapy and medicine. Now, I myself am a suicide attempt survivor, and there are many reasons why people commit suicide. There's not just one, or why they attempt suicide. And for me, it was the first time I attempted, it was because of the death of my mother. And I just wanted to be with her. You know, it was like, oh, I can't live without her. She means a lot to me, despite like our downs and our fights. Like, when she died, I felt like it was just the end of the world for me, and that was my first attempt. And then my second attempt was just a whole bunch of underlying reasons on top of it, including the fact that I was sexually assaulted, and then bullying at school, and just the fact that I felt completely hopeless, and as if there was nothing left to live for. And there are warning signs, which are indicators that a person may be in acute danger and may urgently need help. And another thing I want to say is that everybody's warning signs are different. Like, for me, like, I isolated myself, and I didn't eat, and I was just always agitated, and I was doing things that were reckless, and I was just kind of spiraling downhill. And then it could be completely different for other people. Some other people, if they've drank or taken drugs, they might increase taking drugs and drinking. Some people get extreme mood swings. Others completely withdraw. Some sleep a lot or they don't sleep at all. Others show rage and talk about seeking revenge. And then others just talk about feeling trapped or being in unbearable pain. And then they talk about feeling hopeless and actually talk about wanting to kill themselves and start looking for ways to kill themselves. And then there are risk factors. And risk factors, they don't cause or predict a suicide. Rather, they're things that make it more likely that an individual will consider an attempt. And some of those risk factors are mental disorders, hopelessness, history of trauma or abuse, major physical or chronic illnesses, a previous suicide attempt, lack of social support, the loss of a job, and then even the exposure to others who have died by suicide. And then suicide is a complex public health issue and requires coordination and cooperation among healthcare providers, individuals, family members, and other critical, people in their lives. And ways to help people who may be considering suicide or wanting to attempt suicide is Sometimes they'll seek help for themselves, or you can seek help for them. And they may be upset if you go seek help for them, but it's because in that moment all their thinking is that everything's worthless and nothing's worth living for. And then for those of you who may be considering suicide and are going to seek help for yourself, remember that it's okay to seek help, and it doesn't mean you're weak. Another way to help is to reduce access to the means of suicide, which means to restrict or eliminate access to the things that an individual might use to hurt themselves with or attempt with. And then you need to talk to them if they want to talk. Sometimes they're not going to want to talk at all. Like me, I didn't want to talk. I just completely isolated myself from everything and everyone. But if they do want to talk to them, listen to them, let them know that you're there for them every step of the way. And even if they don't want to talk, at least let them know that you're willing to be there for them every step of the way. And just don't look at them differently. They're human, and they're just going through a rough time right now. The fact that they want to commit suicide right now does not change who they are as a person. It just means that right now they're going through a very rough time and they need some help. And then a very big question that's asked is, why do people kill themselves? And unfortunately, there's no simple answer to this question. People die by suicide for a number of reasons. However, the majority of the people who do attempt or do commit suicide were suffering with an underlying mental illness. And they themselves weren't sick, their brains were. And mental illness is viewed as like, if you can't see it, it's not real. When it is, because your brain is it's a part of your body, it's an organ, like it's like your liver or your other organs and stuff like that. And sometimes things can go wrong with your brain as if it could go wrong with your liver or your stomach or your heart. And just because you can't physically see that someone's hurt or not doesn't mean that they're not, because they could be suffering so much on the inside, but you won't see it. And then another thing I want to stress is that people who attempt suicide are not doing it to prove something or get sympathy. A suicide attempt is a cry for help, and it should never be ignored. It's a warning sign that something is terribly wrong. And a suicide attempt is not done to gain sympathy, because those that attempt usually do it for internal reasons. So again, people who attempt suicide do not do it for sympathy or attention. And I just can't stress that enough. Sorry, this was a hard video for me to make, so I'm kind of like drawing some blanks here. But there are ways to prevent suicide. And if you know someone or you yourself is looking to attempt, or you know someone who is going to attempt, please seek help. Take it from a person who has attempted suicide twice that it does get better. And it takes time. It takes time and a lot of hard work. And there are going to be times when you just want to give up and stop fighting. but you need to keep going. Because both times after I attempted suicide, I felt relieved that I was alive. Because in reality, I didn't want to die. I was just tired of fighting. And I wanted the pain to stop. But I was relieved when I woke up knowing that I was alive. Because there was so much I want to do with my life. So just please, if you are thinking of attempting suicide, remember that there are people out there who care, and there are people who are willing to help, and that it may not seem like everything's gonna get better, but it will.